Hi everyone, here's the Book Chemist once again. Today I'm reviewing The Sunken Land Begins to Rise Again by M. John Harrison, one of the strangest and most disconcerting novels I've read in a long time. I first became aware of this novel because it was mentioned in a Textual Practice article called New Weird Fiction and the Oneirologic of Both End. The article is linked in the description box, which discussed this novel alongside Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy and The City and the City by China Miéville. All of these are works that I liked a lot, and that also drew comparisons between The Sunken Land and the Shadow Over Innsmouth by HP Lovecraft, a piece of writing I've been obsessed with all my adult life. For the Lovecraft fans out there, I should mention that The Sunken Land does offer very strong echoes of The Shadow Over Innsmouth, although, just like the best Lovecraftian fiction in my opinion, it reads nothing like Lovecraft himself. Jonathan Coe, on the back of my edition of the book, calls this a portrait of post-Brexit Britain that brings shivers of both unease and recognition, and I think that's very true. I think this is very much a novel about Brexit Britain, especially in those sections that follow Victoria, one of the novel's two protagonists, as she moves from London to a small town in the Midlands, a place that is very Brexit, her own words, a place where the neighbours are all very friendly. If anything, they are maybe a bit too friendly, but they are also very hard to read. At one point, a roofer working on Victoria's house, commenting about a component for his car or his van, I forget, that he's waiting to receive from Japan. He makes a comment and he says, of course, in this country we used to do a lot of our own engineering. A comment that could codify all sorts of meanings, many of them simply referential or even positive, but that in the context of Brexit Britain acquires a certain sinister and negative aura. And beyond this very simple example, the novel really recreates this atmosphere of doubt and suspicion that takes over in moments of political divisiveness, where you are compelled to second guess and make all sorts of assumptions, very often wrong assumptions, about the people you meet and the people you interact with on a daily basis. It definitely captures the suspiciousness and the standoffishness of our times, which I think are times of great political polarization. And this atmosphere of doubt goes very well with the otherworldly aspects, the aquatic conspiracy that is not so much the Sunken Land's plot, but it's almost an obsessive refrain throughout the novel. Over the course of the novel, Shaw and Victoria, the two protagonists, experience many interconnected signs, many natural and possibly supernatural phenomena that all have to do with water and with water creatures, and that might be either signs of a collective mania or even of some kind of monstrous invasion. The ambiguity with which this conspiracy is handled is very compelling and intriguing, and does call to mind very much to me the Shadow Over Innsmouth itself, a story that's way more ambiguous and way less neatly tied up than is generally assumed to be, and whose final paragraphs in particular I find endlessly fascinating in their many contradictory implications. Sunken Land is first and foremost a psychological novel, one that delves very deep into the psyche of its protagonists as they face different types of midlife crisis. And the key here is a certain type of strangeness, a strangeness once again that mirrors very closely the strangeness of the novel's fantastical elements. It's never entirely clear what is up with Shaw and Victoria. It's never clear what their problem is exactly. What we get at best are theories that are ever evolving, that are always filtered through other people's perspectives, and that they try to use to make sense of their personalities, or their difficulties even. This situation and this way of experiencing these characters is both frustrating and mesmerizing, because that's precisely what we have to make sense of our own personality and our own problems. All we have are evolving theories that change from time to time and that change depending on what light we look at ourselves through or under, or depending on what way we consider ourselves as humans. Sunken Land is a beautiful enigma. It is extremely honest, even ruthlessly so, and in fact one of its most compelling parts is a recurring subplot, if you will, that deals with Shaw's relationship with his mother, who lives in a dementia care house, and the relationship between the two is unpacked in all of its sadness, all of its contradictory feelings, even its dark humor. It's also a novel that's much more generous with its fantastical elements than I thought it would be. It's true that very often all you get about this aquatic conspiracy, all you get are oblique references and hints. But to be honest, that's all you get in a lot of Lovecraft too, and a lot of very compelling and successful weird fiction. I'm thinking of Jeff Vandermeer here too. One point that I think is worth mentioning is that The Sunken Land is a very English novel, and it assumes in the reader an instinctive knowledge of English culture and its implications. What it means to shop at Marks and Spencer or to work there, what it means when a town is described as very Barbour and Bowden. This type of knowledge and understanding is something that I feel I barely grasp, even though I've been living in the place for going 7 years now. Also, like so much, if not all, English literature, from the Bronte sisters to Daphne du Maurier, this novel also shares an unhealthy, morbid obsession with gardens and with flora, with paragraphs upon paragraphs dedicated to phlox and foxglove and herb robert and Edwardian barley sugar and the subtle differences between different varieties of roses that I personally find atrocious, although I'm sure it's just me and it's just a pet peeve of mine. Like many of these weird novels, I feel like it will take me quite a long time to process The Sunken Land. For instance, after I finished it, I didn't think that I'd found it a particularly scary novel, and yet my sleep has been troubled since I finished it, with nightmares connected to the strange creatures and the strange events described in the book. It's definitely a powerful novel, and one that creeps under your skin in more ways than one. I'm very happy that I read it, and I think it would be a nourishing and a very stimulating read for anybody who is interested in weird, dream-like narratives. I look forward to hearing what you think of the novel, and I especially look forward to hearing from fans of M. John Harrison, more broadly speaking, because, as I said, I didn't know his fiction at all until very recently, and I'm curious to hear if there are other of his works that I should really check out, that I should really read. Look forward to hearing more about him in general, and I'm curious to hear if you guys are big fans of Sunken Land. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you confused but intrigued? Let me know in the comment section, as always. Thank you so much for watching the review, and bye everybody.